Good morning. Can you hear me in the back?
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Good morning. This is a fabulous morning. I'm Dean Michael Stamus from the School of Medicine, and we welcome you here to the soccer stadium, our new venue. Do you know why soccer players make good doctors? Because they use their heads. All right, bad joke. Okay. That's the last bad joke of the morning. It's now my pleasure to introduce UCI School of Medicine student Nathan Calixto. Will everyone please stand as we join Nathan in singing our national anthem?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wow. Please be seated. So Nathan thinks he's graduating today, but we need a repeat performance, so we'll fly you back here, Nathan. Thank you so much. Oh, so I'd like to welcome the class of 2019, their parents, spouses, children, significant others, families, and friends. I would also like to acknowledge Chancellor Howard Gilman, Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs Steve Goldstein, and leaders from the School of Medicine who are sitting behind me and are here to celebrate this momentous occasion with all of you. Also on the platform are dedicated faculty who were selected by members of the graduating class to hood them. We deeply appreciate their support of our students, and at this time I'm delighted to introduce the real star of today, other than the students, and that is Vice Dean for Medical Education, Dr. Convan Lay-Buckman.
Will the class of 2019 please stand? Chancellor Gilman, Vice Chancellor Goldstein, Dean Stamos, and other distinguished guests, on behalf of the medical education team and faculty of the UC Irvine School of Medicine, it is my honor and privilege to present to you the class, no, you can't graduate. To present to you the class of 2019.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leigh Buckman. I would like to now introduce the Chancellor of the University of California, Irvine, Howard Gilman.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dean Stamos. Good morning to you all. I'm delighted to be with you today to celebrate the UC Irvine School of Medicine class of 2019. That's an applause. What a tremendous day. Consider all those years of dreaming, planning, aspiring, so many long days and late nights, the setbacks that were survived, a long journey, a very high mountaintop, and here you are. Take a moment to appreciate the magnitude of the accomplishment. On behalf of the entire UCI community, I offer you my most heartfelt congratulations. You are here to serve people when they are most in need, not just of your skills and your knowledge, but your compassion, your wisdom, and your empathy. And so I urge you to balance your necessary confidence with humility. Balance your well-earned authority with respect and kindness. Balance your scientific sophistication with an enduring appreciation of the mystery, wonder, and grandeur of the human condition. May it be for you a meaningful and gratifying journey. All of us at UCI feel privileged to have played a role in your life, and so please stay in touch and share with us your accomplishments. You are part of how we are demonstrating the power of anteaters to make the world a better place. Let me leave you with a quote from the great Bengali poet, Rabindranath Tagore, who was the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. Congratulations, we are very proud of you, and we wish you all the very best.
Thank you, Chancellor Gilman. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs, Dr. Steve Goldstein.
Congratulations, class of 2019. So, you know I just arrived about 4 months ago and you're already leaving. So there's a little bit of sadness for me in that. And while I only know a few of you personally, I know a great deal about you collectively. This allows me to be proud, and with apologies, it emboldens me to burden you with a few words of expectation and some old man's advice. So as a class, you're remarkable. You have published peer-reviewed papers. You've organized conferences. You've advocated for the homeless. You have embraced the richness of life with song and dance. And if my spies are correct, you've had 7 babies and about 15 marriages. And I think 1 marriage is between classmates. There's a lot of services that UCI provides. Your leading specialty choices are emergency medicine, internal medicine, pediatrics, and anesthesia, and 35% of you are choosing primary care. And each and every one of you change the face of medicine in your own way. Indeed, we are depending on you to do that. You will see things that can be better. And at first you'll be unsure, but you will improve them. You will see things that aren't quite right, and you will fix them. You will see health inequities, and you will devise solutions we cannot yet imagine. We are counting on you to do better than those who have come before. Stand on our shoulders and never question that you can repair the world. So now, here's my old man's advice. Do not expect to be perfect. You will make mistakes in your professional life and in your personal life. You have been taught what to do. Reflect on what happened, learn from it, and move forward. Maintain your resilience and compassion. Support your colleagues, your staff, your family, your friends, and then accord yourself the same kindness that you're giving to others. Third, remember that the joy is in the journey. Keep learning. Let your patience guide you. Prioritize teaching the next generation and give them what you most appreciated. Class of 2019, we celebrate you and your remarkable achievements. Your profession asks you to live lives in the service of others. This is both an honor and a responsibility, and we know you will make us proud. Congratulations to each one of you and all of you together.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor Goldstein. Well, I know that there's a couple highlights of this morning. One, of course, is the conferring of the degrees, right? The final moment that you've been working for your whole life. And the other is our keynote commencement speaker. We'll get to him in a minute. I get to say a few words because I have control of the lectern. So, perhaps some of the parents and grandparents of our graduating students remember 1972. Long before all of you were born, there was a well-known song that had a line in it that went, "No more pencils, no more books, no more teachers' dirty looks." 4 long years in medical school is now complete. As the 1972 song continued, "School's out forever." And while you and your parents in particular may revel in the fact that tuition and fees are also out forever, we know, of course, that your education is only partially complete. The Alice Cooper Band, which popularized that song, may have been reflecting on an excitement for summer break. But for the next class of doctors graduating from our School of Medicine, we know that there is no summer break, and we know that your learning will continue beyond the classrooms of UCI. Your schooling will now take place at your upcoming residencies. From the doctors, nurses, and patients you encounter each day as you step into the next phase of your journey. Being a doctor, after all, is about lifelong learning. It is about the education and mentorship you will receive throughout your careers, from the patient that you struggle to diagnose, to the colleagues who will work those long days and nights beside you, from your groundbreaking research to your next clinical victory. At UCI, you've been, I think, fortunate to have been educated in new ways to become medical professionals. You have had access to educational and health tools never seen by the generations of doctors before you. From virtual reality to simulations, your education has afforded you technology and ways to treat patients differently and hopefully better. You can affect their future. You can also shape the future of medicine, and we count on you to do that. If you take only one thought away with you today, let it be to never forget the person behind the patient. Show the empathy that we expect and that you expect, and look beyond your patient's symptoms to understand a little of what is happening in their life. Then demonstrate what it means to care. As a student of medicine, you have the unique opportunity to make significant and very personal impact in the lives of many, many people. You went into medicine to always look forward to new treatments, new research, technology, health policies, some good, some bad. You will build on your previous knowledge and mistakes to become the very best doctor in every moment. But as you look forward, you must also look back, including literally right now, to the family, loved ones, teachers and mentors who shaped you into who you are today and who you will be in the future. Many of them are here today to witness this next step in your education. And commencement is a time to reflect on your academic and personal past that brought you to this day. It's also a time to look ahead to the mentor, teacher, and loved one that you will be to the next generation, paying it forward. No more pencils, no more books, no more teachers' dirty looks. While some of us recall these lyrics in 1972, they actually started as a childhood rhyme in a 1932 magazine. Little known fact. Now, almost 100 years later, pencils have been replaced with touchscreens, Books are replaced by the iPad and the internet, and teachers' dirty looks, well, we are up here on this platform looking out with big smiles for your amazing accomplishments. We're incredibly proud of you. Times may change, but education is enduring, and your medical journeys will continue to grow. I wish you all the best. Your past, education here at UCI School of Medicine, your present, today as you receive your diplomas, and your future, tomorrow as continuously learning doctors. Okay, so now it's my distinct honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Jonathan LaPook as the 2019 keynote commencement speaker. John LaPook, MD, is a professor of medicine at the NYU School of Medicine and the Mebane Professor of Gastroenterology at NYU Langone Health. He is a practicing physician and the founder and executive director of the NYU Langone Empathy Project, which seeks to promote a culture of empathy in medicine. Dr. LaPook is also the chief medical correspondent of CBS News, which he joined in 2006. He has contributed more than 1,000 reports to the CBS Evening News, to 60 Minutes, to CBS This Morning, to CBS Sunday Morning, to Face the Nation, to CBSN and CBS Radio, to name a few. He has traveled widely, including reporting from Haiti after the 2010 earthquake, from Brazil during the Zika outbreak, from Puerto Rico after the hurricane, from the White House, from Congress, and throughout the United States. He has also done extensive work in the field of medical computing, including helping to develop an electronic textbook of medicine and writing a medical practice management software package that he sold in 1999 to a company that was later acquired by MDON, the parent company of WebMD. We're all familiar with WebMD if we use Google. He is a published author and is especially focused on educating the public about health issues. He's passionate about that. In 2014, he founded the Empathy Project at NYU Langone Health. Its premise is that a good interpersonal relationship between patient and caregiver is critical to excellent medical care. It's called trust. The Empathy Project seeks to promote a culture of empathy in medicine, to educate patients to expect and to demand it, and to train healthcare providers to be more humane and effective. It is bringing together leaders in medicine, technology, and entertainment to create short films highlighting important issues between patient and medical caregiver. In his career, he has won numerous awards, including 2 Emmys for his reporting on the national shortage of drugs in 2012 and for team coverage of the Boston Marathon bombings in 2013. In 2018, the Alliance for Women in Media awarded him a Gracie Award in the news feature series category for 2 groundbreaking 60 Minutes reports, USA Gymnastics and Allie Raceman, that investigated a sexual abuse scandal involving America's elite gymnasts. LaPook was also named the George Foster Peabody Award finalist in 2018 for those 2 60-minute investigative reports on the gymnastics scandal. He won 2 Edward R. Murrow Awards for Best Broadcast in 2007 and 2013. He also won a 2015 New York Press Club Award for journalism for a WCBS AM News team special, Eye on Ebola. In 2010, he received a Webby Award for his documentary series, Doc.com. He started all this by graduating with honors from Yale University and Columbia College of Physicians and Surgeons, receiving his MD in 1980. He then completed his residency in internal medicine and a fellowship in gastroenterology at Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. I could go on and on. He truly is an amazingly accomplished person, but also an incredibly warm and great person. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jonathan LaPook to the podium to address our graduates.
What a beautiful sight. Good for the heart. I wish you could all see what I'm seeing. I'm honored to be here today, and I want to thank Chancellor Gilman, Dr. Goldstein, Dean Stamis, and Dr. Leigh Buckland for inviting me. Congratulations, graduating students from the UC Irvine School of Medicine. What a long and difficult journey this has been for all of you, full of ups and downs, seeing things you could not have imagined in your wildest dreams. And now, after countless hours, it's finally over. I'm referring, of course, to Game of Thrones. 8 gut-wrenching seasons. Oh yeah, also there was medical school. That was hard too. I was supposed to give last year's commencement address, but as I was literally sitting in my seat on the plane, ready to take off, I got a call that my 99-year-old father was ill and heading to the hospital. I called my buddy, Dr. Mark Pachapin, who is head of GI at NYU Langone Health, and he confirmed my instinct. Get off the plane and get to the hospital. Amazingly, he offered to leave a conference he was leaving in Washington, D.C., and fly to LA to give the commencement address for me. Fortunately, your stellar dean, Dr. Stamos, stepped in and gave a wonderful talk. And here's why I'm mentioning it now. There will be times when it will be easy to lose perspective. Never forget that people, especially your loved ones, are always more important than stuff, even if the stuff is giving a commencement talk to a top-notch medical school. I was able to be by my father's side as he was being evaluated at the hospital and was blessed to be with him when he died peacefully a few weeks later after a truly wonderful life. Okay, enough about me. What about you? Right now, you are not quite a doctor. That will come in a few minutes. I suspect many of you are itching to get on with it, to jump into internship and see what this MD thing can do on the open road. But I would urge you to savor this moment. Remember what it's like not to know any medicine, to experience, could be more recent than for some than for others. To experience a doctor's visit with all sorts of feelings you may have felt: fear, embarrassment, helplessness, even anger. You will never be better able to appreciate that than right now. And you never want to lose the memory of what it's like to be a patient. 39 years ago, I was you, about to recite the Hippocratic Oath. 13 years ago, I started as a medical correspondent for CBS News. And now I find myself in two worlds: journalism and medicine. Journalism has been the best continuing medical education I could ever ask for. I've done more than 1,000 segments on everything from common problems like heart disease and cancer to breaking news stories like the outbreaks of Ebola and Zika. And I've gotten to travel widely to places like Haiti, Brazil, and Puerto Rico, even California. California. You've been in the health news lately, haven't you? Well, you invited a medical journalist to speak, so let's do it. Let's talk about vaccines. Not just because they're in the news, but because the controversy and misunderstanding surrounding them provide lessons that extend far beyond the recent outbreaks of measles. There have been people suspicious of vaccines for as long as there have been vaccines. Benjamin Franklin went to his grave regretting his decision not to give an early form of smallpox vaccination to his 4-year-old son, who then contracted the disease and died of it in 1736. 1736. That's how far back people have been suspicious. But this was centuries before modern vaccination practices. Why would anyone question the value of vaccination now? Many people have forgotten or never known that viruses such as measles, polio, and smallpox used to kill millions of people around the world every single year. It's estimated the measles vaccine alone saved more than 20 million lives globally from 2000 to 2017. And before the vaccine was available in 1963, 3 to 4 million Americans were infected each year. 400 to 500 died. 48,000 were hospitalized, and about 1,000 suffered severe inflammation of the brain. But by 2000, because of the MMR vaccine, measles was declared eliminated in the United States. So what happened? The current outbreaks of measles around the country are largely a result of parents being afraid to vaccinate their children against the virus. That fear increased dramatically after a 1998 study in The Lancet, a prestigious British journal, falsely linked the MMR vaccine with autism. It took 12 years for the journal to retract the study after investigations concluded the research based on only 12 children was fraudulent. The lead author lost his medical license, but the damage was done, and the anti-vaccine movement took off. What does all this have to do with you, graduating students of the class of 2019? Everything. You may already have known about the story of the bogus Lancet study, but parents who decide not to vaccinate their children either don't know about it or they don't believe that the study was bogus. The question is, how are you going to use your knowledge of medicine and science most effectively in clinical practice? And here's where the vaccine example becomes much more widely relevant to all of you. No matter what clinical specialty you go into, and I love that 35% are going into primary care, way to go. No matter what clinical specialty you go into, somebody's going to question or ignore your advice. Guaranteed. It could be a teenager arguing it's okay to use a tanning salon, or a 60-year-old obese sedentary man convinced he really doesn't need to watch his diet or exercise as long as he takes the 20 supplements he bought on the internet. How are you going to approach all these patients who disagree with you? How are you going to do that? The most successful physicians I've seen have one thing in common: empathy and humility. Yeah, they're smart too, they know a ton, they keep up to date. But what really separates them from the pack, what propels them from the science of medicine to the art of healing, is their ability to put themselves in other people's shoes. It also helps to truly own the fact that you could be wrong. You've all heard about doctors in the distant past who drilled holes in people's heads to let out the evil humors. I suspect they were sure they were doing the right thing. And in just the last 20 years, we've seen all sorts of changes in medical advice. Hormone replacement is good. It's bad. Vitamin E lowers the risk of prostate cancer. It raises the risk of prostate cancer. The answer is not to throw up your hands in disgust. It's all part of the ebbs and flows of science. The scientific method, so much under attack these days, is still the best we have. But even if you're right about a piece of medical advice you're giving to a skeptical patient, always remember what it's like to have a belief punctured. When my son Noah was about 4, he's now 23, he asked us if there was really a tooth fairy. And my wife Kate and I fessed up, and he fell to the ground on his stomach, banging his hands on the floor in one of the major crying fits of the 20th century. After a few minutes, the crying died down to the point where he was just intermittently whimpering. You know that point. At which point, my then 8-year-old son Daniel kneeled down, rubbed Noah sweetly on his back, and said, "I know just how you feel, Noah. I felt the same way when I found out there's no Easter bunny." There's no Easter bunny! Hands banging on the floor again. That's how your patients may feel if your scientific advice brushes up against their firmly held beliefs. And who knows, maybe there is an Easter bunny. My apologies to anybody in the audience who didn't know that. I should have given it. Sorry. Stranger things have happened than it turning out that there is an Easter bunny. Let's turn back to parents who refuse to give their child a measles vaccine, and let's leave possible interventions by the government and public health officials out of this for now. As a physician, how can you help? And let me first immunize myself against the charge that I'm being naive. It's very possible nothing you say or do will make any difference whatsoever. But we know what does not work. And it's the equivalent of when a child asks, "But why?" and a parent answers, "Because I said so." We know it doesn't work to be condescending, judgmental, impatient, or angry. So let's try something else, starting with the obvious common ground. We all love our children. We all want the best for them. Many of us would probably jump into traffic to save a 5-year-old kid we don't even know from getting hit by a car. It's evolutionarily wired to protect and love children. So start off with that. And then when you're talking to your patients, say, all right, let's talk. Facts matter. Tone matters. Body language matters. A gentle, inquisitive, why do you think that? Why do you think that? Is way different than an impatient, dismissive, why do you think that? I just finished a CBS Sunday morning segment about the anti-vaccine movement and met a pediatrician in Oregon who said the gentle approach worked for him 99% of the time. That he had parents who had not vaccinated their child in 5 years change their minds and decide to immunize. Now, maybe he has some kind of special sauce the rest of us don't have, and maybe he's overestimating his success rate. But there's really no downside to being kind, compassionate, and patient. I know, it's tough to be patient when you may have only 15 minutes for an office visit. That's a problem that needs serious addressing, but for now, all you can do is try your best. As part of that Sunday morning vaccine segment, I also met a woman who was first pro-vaccine, then anti-vaccine, then pro-vaccine again. She became anti-vaccine when her son was diagnosed with autism shortly after receiving the MMR vaccine. She felt guilty for years and said, quote, I bled anti-vaccine talk. Again, quoting, whenever I did my research into the anti-vaccine movement, anything that I got back confirmed my own bias. Her sources of information were YouTube sound bites and documentaries. And once again, quoting her, there's all kinds of crazy stuff on the internet, and then there's people like me who come onto that, and then they're very susceptible to that stuff. The majority of people are like me. They're not super crazy. They're just trying to find the real answers to stuff. Imagine her relief, and believe me, it was huge, when she finally came across the dozens of studies showing the MMR vaccine does not cause autism. Of course, logic does not always win the day, especially when it brushes up against fear. But even if you don't get through to patients the way you'd like, you can at least establish a calm, respectful tone for conversation. And don't we all need more of that? If you're thinking, what difference can I make? I'm just one person. Consider this. A recent Gallup poll found that physicians were the second most trusted profession. Coming in first, of course, nurses. You are graduating today with the power to change people's lives, and you can help set an example of tolerance, compassion, and the importance of maintaining an open line of communication. And here's my final thought for you today. I know it's tough to be a doctor. The hours are long, the pressure can be enormous, and burnout is a serious problem that requires a major culture change in our profession in order to be properly addressed. You will make mistakes, and some may have serious consequences. But here's my take after 39 years of being a physician. This is a spectacular profession. You have the power to do so much good. And I suspect you're already starting to do that. You're starting to guide friends and family through our challenging and sometimes treacherous healthcare system. A lot of it's actually easy to do. A phone call out of the blue, checking on a patient without them calling you first. Remember that one. It's a really good one. People totally are blown away when you do that. A referral to a colleague when a friend asks about a sick relative. Giving them perspective when Dr. Google suggests some cockamamie therapy. And encouraging them to be empowered to play an active role in staying healthy and preventing illness rather than waiting for calamity to strike. You will be able to help people anywhere in the world. And given the global healthcare inequity, the world most definitely needs you. Of course, we all want to help our patients to keep them well, but believe it or not, you can learn to cherish the difficult moments too. And that's good because there will be plenty of them. Just 2 months ago, a dear friend and patient of mine died at home after a long illness. And in the last days before his death, even as I was feeling most helpless, he and his wife both wanted me by his bedside, and I was honored to be there. It's true, the technological side of medicine is rapidly evolving with advances in artificial intelligence, immunotherapy, genetic analysis, and home monitoring devices. But the art of healing cannot be reduced to an algorithm. It still requires the human touch, just as it did in the time of Hippocrates. The invitation into the most intimate moments of your patients' lives is a sacred trust. It is a sacred trust. It is a unique privilege. And if you listen to them, really listen to them, with every ounce of your being and an empathetic, compassionate, and generous heart, you are not only going to have let me do that again. And if you listen to them, really listen to them, with every ounce of your being and an empathetic, compassionate, and generous heart, you are not only going to have a fulfilling career, you are going to have a blast. Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you very much, Dr. LePuc, for an exceptional presentation. Please now help me welcome up to the podium senior class presidents Tom Kewen and Graham Stevenson, who will address their fellow graduates.
Hello, everyone. Give us just a second. We don't have a teleprompter because we're not quite that level of fame yet, so we're just going to get organized for a second. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much to our wonderful speakers, in particular, Dr. LePuc. I just want to thank you so much for traveling such a distance, sharing your wisdom and your education with us. It means a huge deal, not only to everybody here, but also to our class. So on behalf of Class of 2019, we want to offer this gift to you. And once again, let's please give him another round of applause. Thank you very much, Dr. LePuc. So, everyone, hello. Distinguished guests, faculty, family, class of 2019. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having us come and give this talk. I can't believe we made it, Tom. That's crazy.
Quite a ride.
Quite a ride. Tom and I actually, we moved in together our first year of medical school. So this is kind of a wonderful finishing to our relationship together.
Yeah. And like many relationships these days, we found each other online.
It's hard to find roommates with similar priorities, so that seemed to be the best place to do it. Really, I would say Tom's parents were more hesitant about us moving in together so quickly than mine were, but you know, when you know, you know.
Speaking of which, we are both incredibly thankful that the admissions team here at UCI felt that way about our applications 4 years ago.
Dr. Peterson and the rest of the admissions team, we want to thank you so much for taking a look at our CV and swiping right. You knew that we were the right people for you. Boom, it was a match, and we're thrilled about everything and how it's gone so far.
Honestly, though, getting into medical school was one of the most stressful processes that we've been through in our lives, other than giving this speech.
It was something like the high school Sadie Hawkins dance.
You start off macho, knowing that the cream of the crop is going to come calling any day now.
And then fast forward to a few days before the big event, you still don't have an invite and you're starting to sweat it a little bit. You start thinking, maybe I should have been doing those push-ups every night before bed.
I knew I should have taken that drama class. The ratio is incredible in this.
But eventually, the two of us and the rest of the class of 2019 got that coveted phone call from Dr. Peterson, letting us know that we are about to embark on a new journey, an incredible opportunity, and really they did such a phenomenal job choosing our classmates, everyone here. Really, we have the utmost respect for you guys. So thank you for allowing us to be part of this group. That was early. We actually had a section for clapping pretty soon, but that's okay. It was more organic like that.
So as the presidents of the class of 2019, we thought our speech should highlight our experiences in medical school and communicate the trials and tribulations of medical education.
Oh, nice. You jumped forward because we
did.
clapped.
We already
I like
clapped,
that.
yeah.
That's good. Okay. We had other things to say, but just thank you all for all the things that you've done for us. So kind of to talk more about Tom and myself, we're both the first in our families to go to medical school. So in a lot of ways, we didn't even really know what we were getting into.
Yeah, it wasn't always quite what we expected. Within a couple weeks, we were changing into scrubs in the hallway outside of the anatomy lab among 100 people we just met, then heading down to the basement to study cadavers for a few hours.
Much of it was really a pretty strange experience, and especially when you start third year of medical school, that's when you start your clinical involvement, seeing patients, really actually getting to start to practice medicine. And part of that, communicating to a family who doesn't have as much exposure, can be a little bit weird.
Graham and I have very different styles of communication. Graham is a little more flamboyant with his words, which is probably why he's more willingly up here on the podium. I'm a little more to the point.
So phone calls would sound something like this. Hi, Mom. Yeah, things are going well. I'm on neurology right now. Brains. And, well, they kind of teach you what to do with that little hammer. That's most of it. Yeah, we do hit them with it. I know, at first do no harm, but it's kind of one of those things, so.
Hey, Mom. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm on pediatrics now. Yeah, a lot of babies. All right, see ya.
Hey, Mom. Yeah, I'm working on surgery. It's incredible. We were in this 5-hour case the other day. No, I didn't get to do very much, but we were there, and it was happening, and it was thrilling. At the end, they did let me put a suture in. That was exciting. They did have to redo it. Yeah, how did you know that, actually?
Hey, Mom. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm on family medicine now. Yeah, it's good. A lot of adults here. All right, gotta go.
Hey, Mom, yeah, I'm working with a psychiatrist. No, they haven't asked me about my feet. What are you talking about? What? That's a podiatrist. That's a podiatrist. Yes, my feet are fine. My feet are absolutely fine. Phone calls aside, this seems like a good time to highlight how much we appreciate our parents and our family here. I'm sure all of us, they give us an incredible amount of support. And really, we love you guys very much. So thank you for that. Part of these phone calls and going through these experiences is about finding out what you want to be in medicine, finding out what field attracts you and what interests you, where you see your strengths, and deciding if it's a career that you'd be happy committing your lives to. Now we're about to start residency, and it's important to not give in to the temptation to continue always looking forward.
We all daydream about life after residency. We'll be the leaders of our generation. We'll cure diseases and spur innovation in the medical field. We'll drive BMWs and join country clubs and dine on the finest of meats.
Some of that might be in our future, but it's certainly not right now.
We will be working all the time. We will be spending our downtime learning how to use epic dot phrases, not pondering complex political issues.
To be honest, we're going to be lucky if we can lease a Kia to drive to work, let alone a nicer car than that. And the food in the cafeteria is not exactly the finest meats, probably only going to be able to afford entrees on the first of the month and major holidays.
For some of us, this will be the first time that we have had a real job or a paycheck, and we'll suddenly be juggling loan repayment and retirement savings. We will have to navigate the landscape of a new job and occasionally wonder just what we got ourselves into.
So because of that, it's very important for us to discuss the role of the resident. What is our job right now? And thinking back on the last 4 years, some of the best teachers and mentors that we had were the residents.
The best residents were those who would show you how to think about problems, how to approach difficult patients with respect and dignity, how to be resilient, and really how to mature into being a physician.
Those are the unsung heroes of the hospital. Those are the people who have interactions with you as a medical student that stays with you throughout the entire course of your training. To recognize that we have a responsibility both as a physician, but also as a teacher and as someone to inspire those around us is important and is worth taking the time to talk about. Taking that 5 minutes to work with a medical student or whomever you're going to be training, that time can echo into hundreds of patient interactions.
There will be lots of times in residency when teams are stretched thin and stress levels will rise. I want my classmates to remember in those moments what it was like being on a med student on those types of teams and to not let their experience suffer.
Never stop thinking of this career as a privilege, and remember that it's your job to be a talented healer, but it's also your job to inspire talent in those around you and really bring out the best in the people in the profession.
Because in the end, we are all in this together as a family. We deserve one another's respect, and we owe it to one another and to our patients to be our best. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and embrace the challenge and privilege of these next few years.
So with that, we want to give all of you our unwavering respect as we transition into this next step of our journey.
Thank you all, and congratulations to the class of 2019.
Tom and Graham, thank you very much. Thank you for those impressively insightful comments and words. I now wish to announce the conferring of hoods. Please welcome up here AMSG co-presidents Will Mintier and Tara Zand, who will announce the names of the graduating medical students and their hooders.
All right, so first up, Dr. Tara Zand, hooded by Dr. Elena Peterson.
Next, we have Dr. William Bruce Mintier III, hooded by Dr. Kyle Paredes. We have to let them fully become doctors for a second before we continue, so just hold on with us.
Okay, let's get started. So next up is Dr. Thomas Winfield Kewen, hooded by Dr. Kyle Paredes.
Next, we have Dr. Graham Sheldon Stevenson, hooded by Dr. Elena Peterson. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Nathaniel Calixto, hooded by Dr. Elena Peterson.
Next, Dr. Tan Tao Vu, hooded by Dr. Don Minkler.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Alexandra Jeffrey, hooded by Dr. Leigh Buckland.
Dr. Jeremy Martin, hooded by Dr. K.V. Lee Buckland.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Megan Elizabeth Bernstein, hooded, hooded by Dr. Tui.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Katie Lunny, hooded by Dr. Julianne Toohey.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Katrina Lee, hooded by Julianne Tui.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Esther Kim, hooded by Dr. Julianne Toohey.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Catherine Grace Chen, hooded by Dr. Julianne Tui.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Tony Nguyen, hooded by Dr. Julianne Toohey.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. David Panic, hooded by Dr. Julianne Tui.
Now introducing Dr. Kevin Roy, hooded by Dr. Julianne Toohey.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Brian Yadagari, hooded by Dr. Julianne Tui.
Now introducing Dr. Connor Byrne, hooded by Dr. Julianne Toohey.
Next, introducing Dr. Christopher John Gabriel, hooded by Dr. Matt Reed.
Now introducing Dr. Robert William Hately, hooded by Dr. Matt Reed.
Now introducing Dr. John Zhao, hooded by Dr. Matt Reed.
Now introducing Dr. Tuan No, hooded by Dr. Kyle Paredes.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Nicolas Kale, hooded by Dr. Kyle Paredes.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Gabriella Marvisi, hooded by Dr. Kyle Paredes. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Michael James Elder Louthan, hooded by Dr. Kyle Paredes.
I knew you wanted to do it really badly. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Herschel Bukta, hooded by Dr. Kyle Paredes.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Lauren Witchy, hooded by Dr. Carol Major.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Spencer Albertson, hooded by Dr. Carol Major. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Katie Barron, hooded by Dr. Jeff Souchard.
Now introducing Dr. Sahil Agarwal, hooded by Dr. Julianne Tui.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Bharat Reddy Simpathi, hooded by Dr. Julianne Tui.
Now introducing Dr. Jose Steve Covarrubias, hooded by Dr. Chuck Vega.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Stephanie Ray Morley, hooded by her father, Dr. James Morley.
How sweet. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Brianna Williams, hooded by Dr. Sebastian Schubel.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Alini Silva, hooded by Dr. Schubel.
It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Christina C., hooded by Dr. Sebastian Schubel. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Misaker Abate, hooded by Dr. Sebastian Schubel.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Beatrice Sun, hooded by Dr. Schubel.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Emily Barber, hooded by Dr. Bobby Sasson.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jamie Yabuno, hooded by Dr. Sasson.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Alyssa Lowe, hooded by Dr. Bobby Sasson.
Next, I have the pleasure of introducing Christopher J. Galani, hooded by Dr. Ray.
Now introducing Dr. Rashi Singh, hooded by Dr. Maki Yamamoto.
Next, I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Navneeth Kalon, hooded by Dr. Taylor Lucas.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Shella Raja, hooded by Dr. Melitza Brown.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jonathan Brian Lee, hooded by Dr. Shadi Laham.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Bima Joseph Hashim, hooded by Dr. Kabuti.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Anna Marie Hosking, hooded by Dr. Kristen Kelly.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Joshua Levy, hooded by Dr. David Kilgore.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Surtaj Walia, hooded by Dr. Gurpreet Ahuja.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Alan Yu, hooded by Dr. Jason Samaracina.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Nam Tai, hooded by Dr. Tan Nguyen.
Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Nathan Birnbaum, hooded by his father, Dr. Gary Birnbaum.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Orly Florsheim, hooded by her father-in-law, Dr. Gary Birnbaum.
Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Sean Denny, hooded by his father, Dr. Christopher Denny.
Jean-Paul. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Sammy Dweib, hooded by his father, Dr. Kifa Dweib. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Alexa Love, hooded by Dr. Susie El-Sadin.
Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Allison Farfel, hooded by her father, Dr. Arthur Burl Farfel.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Nicole Saleme, hooded by her brother, Dr. Ziad Kesbach.
Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tiffany Pham, hooded by her sister, Dr. Michelle Pham.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Valentina Park, hooded by her grandfather, Dr. Unwan Park.
Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Priya Patel, hooded by her cousin, Dr. Neeruj Patel.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Victoria Oppenheim, hooded by her father, Dr. Philip Oppenheim.
Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Rachel Sunico, hooded by her mother, Dr. Alice Sunico.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Monica Lee, hooded by her sister, Dr. Marissa Darling.
Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Armin Gazarian, hooded by his best friend, Dr. Artin Galusian.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Aditya Mantha, hooded by his mother, Dr. Usha Mantha.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. So Thane, hooded by his mother, Dr. Pugh Sayin.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Victor Tran, hooded by his sister, Dr. Lavina Tran.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Winston Vuong, hooded by Dr. Kyle Paredes. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Alexander Anxious, hooded by his father, Dr. John Anxious.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Pejman Maj, hooded by his brother, Dr. Naveed Maj.
Now it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Olivia Kaminsky, hooded by her father, Dr. Nick Kaminsky.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Connor Nathy, hooded by his brothers, Dr. Tyler and Ryan Nathy.
It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. David Weiland, hooded by his brother, Dr. Joseph Weiland.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Nicole Tatiana Zawada, hooded by Dr. Tanya Mamentov.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Nadia Zuwabi, hooded by her father, Dr. Shauki Zuwabi.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jeffrey Yu, and who will be hooded by his father, Dr. John Yu.
What an honor to introduce our classmates' names. I am so proud to say that we did it.
She's not done yet. At this time, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Edwin Manuki, Chair of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine, who will present the candidates for the Medical Scientist Training Program. And our AMSG presidents will be announcing their names, so they're coming back.
Hi, as Associate Director of the program and on behalf of Director Al Golden, it's really truly my honor to be able to announce the graduates of the Medical Scientist Training Program. So these individuals have committed 8 years, or the entirety of the Game of Thrones series, or longer, really dedicated to the idea of combining clinical care with biomedical research. So these individuals are really dedicated to the idea that of not only applying sort of the current state of the art to take care of their own patients, but to change, improve, and create the new state of the art to impact and treat so many others. As physician scientists, their deep understanding of both the research and clinical worlds, they also represent a very important cadre of our future leaders of academic medicine. And so with that, congratulations to all of them, and I will have the introductions.
All right, let's get started. So I'd like to introduce our next doctor, Dr. Colin McCrimmon, hooded by Dr. Manuki.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Michael Geisen, hooded by Dr. Manuki.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Brad Gallant, hooded by Dr. Manuki.
Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Erin Gallant, hooded by her thesis advisor, Dr. Oswald Stewart.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Edsel Aboud, hooded by his father, Dr. Nelson Aboud.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Ann Bowie, hooded by her father, Dr. Lai Bowie.
Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Tobias Dong, hooded by his father, Dr. Hui Dong. And now, I don't think we say anything.
No.
Let's
Okay.
Charles.
At this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Charles Vega, Director of the Program in Medical Education for the Latino Community.
All right. Buenos días a todos. Y felicidades a todos los doctores nuevos de la clase de 2019. Prime LC was initiated in 2004, and with our current class, soon to be appearing, we are having 114 graduates now from our program. The goal of Prime LC is to create not only outstanding clinicians, but real leaders and activists for California's poor and disenfranchised Latino communities. So the class of 2009 will represent this mission very well. They've chosen the path less traveled. They've done great work here at UCI, in Prime LC, in our community, and that will continue. We expect great things. And when it comes to continuing on that path, and I think this applies to all graduates from this class today, I would just advise you to never let somebody tell you to stay in your lane. So, when you know that road can lead to greater illness, more disability and suffering, premature death, and more health disparities. So I really strongly encourage you to be bold, be courageous, be difference makers. We are here to support you on that path. We will always be your home, and we've got your back 100%. Collectively, we can do so much more than we can do individually. So arriba y adelante, we are now going to present the class of 2019 for Prime LC, so I'll ask them to come up. The class has chosen Roxanne Talamayan Pasqua to be their student presenter, which is a big honor, and it's a big honor for me to present this class, the Prime LC class of 2019. Roxanne, take it away.
Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to present the class of 2019 for Prime LC. Hola a todos, me llamo Roxanne Talamayan Pasqua y voy a anunciar y presentar a la clase de Prime LC del 2019. Les quiero agradecer por el honor de introducirlos por primera vez como doctores. Estoy agradecida por el tiempo que hemos pasado juntos y estoy orgullosa de haber sido de parte de su grupo. So just in English, thank you for the honor of allowing me to introduce you for the first time as doctors. I am grateful for the time we have spent together and am proud to have been a part of your cohort. So first off, I'd like to introduce Doctora Gemma Alarcón Garza, hooded by Dr. Elena Peterson. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Christopher Badger, hooded by Dr. William Armstrong. Next, I'd like to introduce Doctora Graciela Maldonado, MD, MS Bats, hooded by Dr. Chris Fox. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Vincent O'Brien Guerrero, hooded by Dr. David Kilgore. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Joseph Naim Zakaria, hooded by Dr. Vega. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ivy Ewald, hooded by her father, Dr. Peter Ewald. Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Kala Gure, hooded by her father, Ganesh Gure. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Jillian Gottlieb, hooded by her father, Michael Gottlieb. Now, I'd like to introduce Clelia Alexandra Clark, hooded by her mother, Anna Pacheco Clark. Now, I'd like to introduce Razan Orkusian, hooded by her mother, Nareen Orkusian. Now, I'd like to introduce Eric Zuniga, hooded by his best friend and brother from another mother, Jose Sanchez.
I would now like to introduce Dr. Kyle Paredes, Director of the Dual Degree MD MBA program.
As the director of the MD MBA program, it's my pleasure to introduce this class this year. These are students who decided to take a year off between their third year and fourth year to pursue a master's degree in business administration. They learned all the basic things like finance and accounting, all the stuff you expect a doctor to know. But beyond that, they took a lot of courses in health economics and really learned the skills and foundation to be able to be agents for change in the future, to help fix a broken system that we have and find new ways to do things better. And so it's with great pride and joy that I get to introduce this class to you guys. So the MD MBA class of 2019.
I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Jonathan Schilling, hooded by Dr. Alina Peterson.
It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Nicholas Salvatierra, hooded by Dr. Kyle Paredes.
Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Michael Nechayev, hooded by Dr. Kyle Paredes.
It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Shay Gallagher, hooded by Dr. Brian Smith.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Marita Gillis, hooded by Dr. Richard Kelly.
Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Mario Bernaba, hooded by his father, Dr. Bassem Bernaba.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Lauren Shreve, hooded by her aunt, Dr. Dale Jacknow.
I'd like to introduce Dr. Lauren Rosario, hooded by her father, Dr. Marshall Rosario.
Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Faraz Khan, hooded by his father, Dr. Khalid Khan.
I'd like to introduce Dr. Adam Cantor, hooded by his father, Dr. Scott Cantor.
At this time, Dr. Jeffrey Souchard will present the MD MS BATS candidate.
This is going to be a lot of buildup for just one special graduate here, a master doctor. The Masters of Science in Biomedical and Translational Science program, or MS BATS, was developed in 2011 to train physician scientists for careers in clinical research. The medical students in the MD MS BATS program, they work very hard and they actually take a year off of the normal 4-year training to complete their degrees, sacrificing graduation with their original cohort with which they matriculated. They take a rigorous course of instruction and are required to complete a master's thesis to earn their degrees. So please join me in congratulating Charles Lynn, who will be receiving a Master of Science and MD degree today, and we'll hear who the hooder is from those folks.
So we've saved the best for last. I'd like to introduce Dr. Charles Lynn, hooded by Dr. Chris Fox.
I would now like to invite Dr. Leigh Buckland back to the podium to administer the oath for Doctors of Medicine to the class of 2019.
Today, I'd like someone special to join me here in administering the oath. Dr. Julianne Tui, please come up. This is a very special graduation for Dr. Tui, who's our Associate Dean for Student Affairs. It is also her graduation, as she will be retiring this year. We'll miss her a lot. So will the graduating class of 2019 please stand? Four years ago, you took the oath for medical students, and today you will take the oath for doctors of medicine. The oath can be found at the front of the program. As I read the oath, please repeat one line at a time after me, as well as Dr. Toohey. Today, in the presence of family, friends, teachers, and colleagues, I dedicate myself to the profession of medicine.
As a physician, I pledge myself to the service of humanity.
I will use my skills to care for all in need without bias and with openness of spirit.
I vow to hold sacred the bond between doctor and patient.
I will hold in confidence all that my patients entrust to me.
I will strive to alleviate suffering.
I will respect the dignity and autonomy of my patients in living and dying.
As a physician, I recognize my duty to society.
I will work to promote health and prevent disease.
I will advocate for the welfare of my community.
Even under duress, I will not use my knowledge or my skills against humanity.
I will acknowledge my limitations and my mistakes so that I may learn from them.
To uphold these responsibilities, I will maintain my own well-being and the well-being of those close to me.
As a physician, I will promote the integrity of the practice of medicine.
In the tradition of my chosen profession, I will honor all who teach me this art.
Through honest and respectful collaboration with my colleagues, I will seek new knowledge, re-examine ideas and practices of the past, and teach what I have learned.
Above all, the health of my patients will be my first concern.
This oath I take freely and upon my honor.
Will the class of 2019 please assent to the oath for doctors of medicine by saying, "I do"?
To give the members of the graduating class of 2019 the opportunity to reflect on their own personal commitment, we will observe a moment of silence.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Chancellor Gilman to the podium to confer the degrees.
Class of 2019, you have been telling your friends and loved ones for a while that you are graduating from the UCI School of Medicine. It raises the question, at what moment do you actually graduate? And that moment is right now. Ladies and gentlemen, by the power vested in me by the Regents of the University of California, I now confer the degrees of Doctor of Medicine and Master of Science to the UC Irvine School of Medicine class of 2019. You did it. Congratulations.
Thank you, Chancellor Gilman. I want to thank everybody for attending this morning, and I hope that everybody will join us at the reception located directly behind the stage. Please stand as the faculty leads the procession off the field.
All right, follow me. Follow me. Oh, our Mace March.